we said goodbye.
After an unexpected tragedy following the events of Avengers Endgame, the Eternals, an immortal alien race created by the Celestials who have secretly lived on Earth for 7,000 years, reunite to protect humanity from their evil counterparts, the Deviants. That is the logline for the upcoming Chloe Zhao-helmed Marvel film, Eternals, releasing on November 5th, 2021. But most people have no knowledge of the characters and the world that will be coming to the MCU in just a few months. So let's talk about the Eternals story in the comics and how it is being translated to the MCU. In this video, we will give you a quick refresher on the history of the Eternals through the comics, as well as our opinions on how their live-action characters will fit into the MCU, including roles such as Angelina Jolie's Thena, Salma Hayek's Ajax, and even Kit Harington's Black Knight, just to name a few. So let's get right into the comic history. 1,000,000 years ago, Celestials came to Earth and began experimenting on proto-humans. From this, they created two groups, the Eternals and the Deviants. By human standards, the Eternals are regarded as beautiful, while the Deviants are regarded as hideous. In terms of powers, the Eternals were all granted the same powers with slight variations within the group. Those powers being superhuman strength, they are nearly immortal, they can fly, project cosmic energy from their eyes or hands, and create mental illusions. The Deviants were all granted differing powers with none of them repeating within the species. The Eternals and the Deviants are always at each other's throats, and the Eternals hid on Earth for thousands of years for the sole purpose of defending humanity from the Deviants. Now, as for the story, Kronos ruled the Eternals until his body was blown apart while doing several experiments. However, his mind survived and became one with space and time. This was actually the event that triggered the Eternals' powers and immortality via a cosmic energy wave that was released when Kronos' body was destroyed. The new leader of the Eternals came down to two options, Zurus and Alars. Many will remember Alars as the name of Thanos' father in Avengers Infinity War. Alars then went to space and became known as the Mentor and became the father to some of his own Eternals, one of which was the Mad Titan himself. Alars' Eternals were based off the planet Titan, which in the comics is a moon of Saturn, but its location is not known in the MCU. That's right, this planet, just like the character who inhabits it, has already appeared within the universe in Avengers Infinity War. But it seems that his race being wiped out had nothing to do with an Eternals-related event and more to do with overpopulation, war, and famine, as stated by the character in the film. Back on Earth, once Zurus was killed, the survivors of his group were led by Icarus. They all had their minds wiped by Sprite, another Eternal, and they all lived new lives until they eventually remembered who they were. As for the Eternals film, there's no word on whether or not the Eternals were created millions of years ago. Since the first humans are recorded not to even be 100,000 years old, it's likely that the time period will be changed. But as the logline of the film, and Kevin Feige himself has stated, the Eternals have been on Earth at least 7,000 years. But this sounds like the amount of time they've been hiding on Earth and not how long they've been around. And the length of time the Eternals have been around means that they are a significant race. As mentioned by Cersei in the Marvel Studios Celebrates the movie sizzle reel, the Eternals were the ones who changed everything. Their group shaped humanity, and the film will explore that in its time-hopping story. Now, this time-hopping could mean multiple things. First of all, we will almost certainly see the group's origin in flashbacks. This means a possible glimpse at characters like Kronos, Zurus, Alars, and maybe even Thanos. The Mad Titan is rumored to appear in the film alongside his brother Eros. The film will also take place in the present day of the MCU after the events of Avengers Endgame. The unexpected tragedy that reunites the Eternals could be related to the Deviants finally revealing themselves. Now, who are these characters? There are a lot of them. First of all, we have Ajax, the leader of the Eternals, who will be played by Salma Hayek in the film. In the comics, Ajax could communicate with the Celestials. He had a close connection to the Aztecs and ancient Greece as he fought in the Trojan War and was mistaken for Ajax. He also helped the Eternals remember who they were after Sprite erased their memories. The reason we keep referring to Ajax as a he is because in the original source material, Ajax was a male. The character is being gender bent for the MCU. Next up, we have Thena, who will be played by Angelina Jolie. Thena is the daughter of Zurus, who, as mentioned, was the ruler of the group after the death of Kronos, and she was born in Olympia during the time of ancient Greece. Thena's name comes from the Greek god Athena. She was named this after Zurus made a treaty with the gods of Olympus. Interestingly enough, Greek gods are coming to the MCU next year when Russell Crowe plays Zeus in Thor: Love and Thunder. Thena is a master warrior who got the standout moment in the sizzle when she held a very elegant, golden, and partially transparent sword. Thena's variation on her cosmic energy manipulation is the ability to use said energy to create any weapon she wants, whenever she wants it. It's safe to assume that she will switch weapons on the fly at least once in the film, but probably more. By now, you have probably noticed some of the ways in which the Eternals helped shape and influence civilization. Ajax fought in the Trojan War and is connected to the Aztecs. Thena has connections to ancient Greece, and here with Icarus, we have that connection once again. During the Great Cataclysm 20,000 years ago, Icarus saved humanity by transporting an ark of humans and animals to safety. This is also the same event that caused Atlantis to sink. Atlantis is the home of King Namor, and he could be making his MCU debut in the next few years. Icarus met Hercules in ancient Greece and had to battle a minotaur-shaped deviant, which may be where the idea of minotaurs came from. Icarus could easily be considered Marvel's superhuman with his red and blue color scheme, the ability to fly, and the ability to shoot beams from his eyes. In the film, Icarus will be played by Richard Madden. When asked about the lead character in the film, Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige said that if the film were to have a lead, it would most likely be Cersei, played by Gemma Chan. Cersei has perhaps the most interesting connections to humanity. She had run-ins with the wizard Merlin, as well as King Arthur, and she inspired the legend of Cersei in Homer's Odyssey. The legend of Cersei involves the Greek hero Odysseus landing on her island and having his entire crew turned into pigs before Hermes gave Odysseus an herb to avoid Cersei's charm. She fell in love with him and set the crew free. And speaking of falling in love, Cersei is famously flirty with men and has a very playful personality. Her main love interest in the comics is Dane Whitman, aka the Black Knight, who is not an Eternal but merely a man. Set photos show that this romance will be brought into live action with Kit Harington set to play Whitman. And Dave Whitman is actually the third Black Knight, the first being Sir Percy of Scandia, who fought evil using an ebony blade crafted from the Starstone meteorite by Merlin. The blade can cut through any object, prevent the death of the wielder, and deflect any magic. But the blade carried with it a curse that slowly corrupts its wielder and causes a desire for violence. The blade brings out the worst in people and slowly turns them into bloodthirsty savages. The second Black Knight was Nathan Garrett, who was confronted by Sir Percy's spirit and was unable to lift the ebony blade. He wanted to be the Black Knight so bad that he crafted a lance that shoots lightning bolts and was known as the Villainous Knight. And that brings us to Dane Whitman. His noble spirit allowed him to wield his ancestor's blade, but it was cursed with the blood of Sir Percy's victims. Whitman used the blade for many years before finally giving it up and plunging it back into the meteorite it came from. Dane Whitman is the Black Knight in the Eternals. But Kit Harington's absence in toys, images of the team and cast hints that Dave Whitman will not be a main character in the film, but instead set up the Black Knight to appear later on. And because the movie will hop through time, we might see the first two Black Knights as well. Moving on, we have Kingo, played by Kumail Nanjiani. In the original source material, Kingo was Japanese and learned the way of the samurai in the 16th century. He became a Japanese movie star. The MCU race-bent this character to be Pakistani-American, Kumail Nanjiani's nationality, and he became a Bollywood film star in the time the Eternals were disassembled. At two different points in the sizzle reel, Kingo has a camera following him around, and the character has a Bollywood-style dance number in the film. Makari is next up, and when the film was announced at San Diego Comic-Con in 2019, this character generated a huge amount of buzz. This character was race-bent just like Ajak and will be played by deaf actress Lauren Ridloff. The character of Makari will be deaf as well, making this the first deaf superhero. Makar devoted most of his energy to enhance his speed, giving him super speed. We see Makari's super speed for a split second in the sizzle reel when she stands next to some of her fellow Eternals in costume. The reason for Makari being deaf might be a story point related to the character's speed. She may also be a mute character, which makes her one of the most unique members of the group, and it will be interesting to see her role in the film. Phastos is the Eternals tech expert and inventor, and he wields a hammer that shoots bolts of lightning. But since that sounds a little too similar to a certain god of thunder, this probably won't happen in the film. Maybe he'll shoot lightning from his hands, or just not shoot lightning at all. We'll see. Gilgamesh is next, and he will be played by Korean actor Don Lee. Gilgamesh is considered the Hulk of the Eternals. He is a brawler and has been benched several times in the comics because he got too invested in human events. He helped to overthrow tyrants and slay beasts. He befriended Achilles, King David, and fought alongside Hercules. Druig is another member of the Eternals, and if one of them was most likely to end up as a villain, it would be Druig. He is known as the Lord of Flames and Nightmares, and is very power-hungry. He served as an agent in the Russian KGB and found fun in torturing people. He also just looks plain evil with those red eyes and his fashion sense. And last but certainly not least, we have Sprite, another gender-bent character who will be played by Leah McHugh. Sprite is thousands of years old, just like the rest of the Eternals, but is stuck in a 12-year-old body. It will be interesting to see how Marvel addresses the character's aging, since Leah McHugh is still growing and will noticeably age as her time in the MCU goes on. That is, if the character returns. As mentioned several times now, Sprite was the one who erased the Eternals' memories and gave them new lives before they eventually rediscovered who they were. It seems like the film will start off with the Eternals disassembled. Perhaps the reason for this is that Sprite wiped their memories thousands of years ago, and that explains why they weren't present for all the huge MCU conflicts, including the one time that half the universe's population vanished. But now they're coming back together, with the impending threat of the Deviants looming right around the corner. Should be exciting to watch. That's it for our Eternals refresher. We hope you enjoyed watching. Please subscribe to see some more of our MCU related videos. Thanks!